The biggest culture shocks as an Italian in China. For those who are new here, we've been in China for about a year. We went from northeast to southwest, from mega cities to rural villages. I got to hang out with Jay's families and we made local friends. I'm ready to share the biggest cultural challenge. And they're all here and Jay doesn't know what I'm about to say, so we're gonna also enjoy her reaction. I'm gonna start from the very beginning because there is one thing, if I still think about it, it really makes me angry. When we just arrived here, I had to do my residence permit. Basically, the way it worked is we went to the police station, I gave them my documents, didn't have to wait in line for too long. There were plenty of employees there. The police station was nice and new. Very quickly, they just checked the documents, asked me a couple of questions, very nicely said, oh, come back in a week and pick it up. Now that sounds all nice and great. It's like, so why does it make me angry? Because Jay had to go through the same experience in Italy and it really wasn't nice at all. We spent the first time almost 8 months to get a residency permit, but more than that, the thing that really made me angry in the comparison, as I felt really ashamed, is the way the authorities in Italy treated immigrants and, you know, people trying to get the residency permit. We were made to queue for hours on end outside of the police station under the sun. It was pretty horrible. They were treating people like cattle. They were just shouting and like making you feel like really unwelcome.
Yeah, they give you appointments, but you still have to go there and wait for whole afternoon or whole morning. But the thing is, like, there's a lot of refugees. I think they are treating the refugees badly. Me, like, getting regular residency, like, get caught in the middle and have, you know, the same treatment because we are only the few, more as refugees, which is not supposed to happen anyways. And they kind of forgot about me. They forgot about my documents.
We were lucky because my auntie knows someone in the police station and she could get him to look at our file. There are a lot of other things that I'm ready to share. Also, from the very beginning, when we moved into your dad's flat for a while, what shocked me was this high-rise residential building, these huge tall buildings with hundreds of apartments, and just her dad's compound, not even the entire block, just the compound was probably tens of thousands of people. That is bigger than my entire hometown, and that was just a tiny compound, not even a block, not even a neighborhood of a tier 2 city, and that really immediately put things under perspective. I was like, wow, there's a lot of people here in China. It's like crazy. We're gonna go through categories, okay? We're gonna start with what is closer to my heart, which is food. I would say the first one is in Italy, we all have our own plate. And you know, they serve you your own plate and you eat in your own plate. Here is a bit more like Spanish tapas. They put a lot of plates in the middle of the table. You have your empty bowl with your rice or just your empty plate and everyone like helps themselves from the center. And I think that's really nice actually, because I love tapas in Spain too. It's more like a communal, more sharing kind of thing. What is not nice, and something I can't get used to despite a year here. And I know it's my problem, it's a cultural thing, it's also a thing in Japan and in Korea, but it's the slurping and smacking and loud eating and loud chewing.
No, in Italy you could be like, eat in silence, like don't be rude, blah, blah. But here you need to get used to this, and you know, like it's been almost a year. Like, he's still not very used to this.
I have misophonia,
and
I guess.
I mean, I understand certain people can eat louder and sometimes certain people can eat more quiet, but more or less, you know, you make noise. Here is like the more noise you make, it's more yummy, like you appreciate the meal more. Yeah,
it's actually polite here. It's being say, oh, this is so delicious. And you're like, oh. So when you see a restaurant next table, you never know if there's gonna be some quiet people or if there's gonna be like very loud. And I still unfortunately struggle with
even
this.
Me, I eat pretty quiet already.
Like
I don't often make noise unless the food is really hot or something.
So there is a big difference. And obviously the stranger foods, I mean strange, they're not strange, they're just different, but stuff like chicken feet, duck neck, the century-old egg, and also they really don't throw anything. Like if they kill a chicken, you eat the whole chicken. So sometimes you have a hot pot and you know, you will see the head of the chicken just surfacing and saying hello.
People literally eat the skin off the head and then they suck the brains out and then they throw the head.
Wow, yeah. So that's something...
Supposed to be intelligent if you do that.
But I also think it makes you a little bit appreciate more the sacrifice of the animal. If
Oh, actually, because when you buy the chicken already come as a whole. So like, it's normal just chop it up because, everything in the pot. And we like to cook everything together because all the juice, cartilage gives flavor. So like bones and all that is usually
the organs, the
all in there.
intestines. When you buy chicken or fish at the market, you buy it alive. You go to the chicken guy and he will just literally kill it. So I think that also makes you kind of want to waste less of the animal, though they also sell the normal meat cuts, and that is no for me, because they don't keep it in the fridge. It's just hanging out in the market stall all day, sometimes in a hot day at like room temperature, so that meat probably kind of spoils throughout. And I've seen things like, remember in Huashan there was a bird eating from the meat while we were having a burger next to it and wondering, is this the same meat? Oh my god.
In small cities it happens a lot because it used to be like this. Meat just, they hang it out and they sell it and that's it.
As a whole, food safety, it's a bit like playing Russian roulette. Also, when you get takeaway, you never know. In Italy, we're super obsessed with food safety, and the European Union has insane regulations for everything. I have to say, I worked in restaurants in Italy. Don't think it's perfect. Like, whenever you eat out, wherever you are in the world, you are in the hands of the people who run the restaurants, and they're not always up to standard. One stereotypes that we can break, though, the myth, is that Chinese eat a ton of dog meat or insects all the time. That is absolutely not true. I don't know why there's this big stereotype here, but dog meat is very, very rare.
So the part of China that's close to North Korea is famous for dog meat, and also southern China, that part that's close to Vietnam. So basically Guangxi, a small part of Yunnan, like southern people, like they have different dietary habits.
Really, you mostly eat pork, beef, and in Xinjiang Muslim regions lamb, but
the whole China generally pork and chicken are the main protein source.
Cold water here. If you drink cold water or ice water, you are a weirdo, because here you have to drink hot water, right?
Hot water, or room temperature water. Any fluid has to be slightly warm because it's good for your stomach.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to heat it up in order to digest it. So the traditional Chinese medicine say it's good for your health.
Which is very weird for me, because we always keep water in the fridge, even in winter, and in summer we drink it ice cold, and here it's seen as something like very unhealthy. And when you go to a restaurant, they serve you water, you pick up the glass and it's hot, you're like, for a second you have to like think about it. Now I'm getting used to it. Actually don't mind, and often they give you just tea directly. Coffee is the other way around. For us, coffee, you take for granted it's gonna be hot. Here they tend to assume you want it iced.
Default is cold,
Yeah, even when it's freezing outside. And speaking of drinks, one thing that I noticed that we don't have is, there's a lot of drinking baijiu, which is these very strong spirits. So people tend to get drunk, especially for like business purposes, like company outings. But they have an app that if you drive and you get drunk, you can call this guy. He comes with an electric scooter to pick you up. He puts his electric scooter in the trunk of the car. He drives you home and then he goes back. So you can hire this driver that can drive you and your car safely if you get drunk. And it's very common. Sometimes you get out of a restaurant, you see a bunch of these people with scooters waiting for a customer.
It's called 代驾. It's been popular for like, I don't know, over a decade for sure. When I was young, it was already popping out.
It's crazy to me. It's a genius idea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a pretty genius idea. And since we're speaking of driving, the insane amount of electric cars go in places like the French Concession, for example, city center in Shanghai, and there's plenty of cars going around, but it's just quiet. It's very strange to be in a city with many cars and it's quiet. That took me a while to get just adjusted to, because we mostly still drive gasoline.
Yeah, in city it's more common. It only happened in recent years, because last time when I was back, it was not like this still. But this time, like post-pandemic, really they were pushing the new energy car.
Apparently it's a bit like smartphones you were saying. If you can afford, you change your electric car every couple of years.
Because it's like phones. They upgrade the models all the time. The old model gets super cheap, and then there's the government subsidies, like to buy it for cheap. Like,
heavy government subsidies. Like you get 15-20% discount. You park
and
for
there's
free.
a tax break if you buy EVs. You change your old car to EV. And mostly, it's just so much cheaper. You charge it once, it costs only like 30-40 kwai.
What isn't quiet is people driving. Like they honk a ton. And this is more like a generic Asia kind of thing. I've experienced it in India.
We're really not patient.
Really not patient. Really reckless driving. I'm from Sicily, okay? We're reckless drivers.
Worst in Europe.
For European standards, yes, we're the worst. When I drive in Europe, like when I give a lift to someone in Spain or UK, they'd be like, whoa, dude, chill. When I drive here in China, people are like, wow, Davide, you're such a quiet driver. You're so chilled. That's completely different because here they really can be reckless, overtaking and cutting, which for me is not as bad because I'm Sicilian. But I guess if you're coming from a more civilized part of Europe, gonna take you a while to get used to driving.
People take you over from the right side and they would cut you and get in front of you and, you know, like honk for no reason.
And there is cameras every intersection, and what the interesting thing is the Maps app tells you what kind of camera it's coming up, because some cameras check if you have a seatbelt, some cameras check if you're on the phone, some cameras check your speed, some cameras check other things. So the traffic, especially around intersection, kind of gets more civilized and controlled, but then people speed immediately.
But despite you were like in the intersection, you did a few wrong things, but we never
got fined yet. Cameras everywhere. It's also general, like reminds me of London. London is full of cameras, and here also big cities, especially every few meters there's a camera. It's every public space has cameras. I was pretty surprised to find a camera on top of the east peak of Mount Huashan. Like after a long hike,
I didn't notice.
You get to the peak and there's a camera there, and you're like, come on, man, leave me alone. In the middle of the bamboo forest in Wuyunshan, there was a camera, and you're like, all right, even here in your hike.
But it could be for safety reason, you know?
Yeah, so mostly in this commercial famous hikes, because a lot of tourists go, they put cameras. But for example, we've been on the mountains here wild camping. There was no cameras, no service. We were alone in the nature. It was pretty good. Cameras come with an advantage, which is safety. That's something that has really shocked me. In China, you can go out any time of the day. You really don't have to worry about your safety. It really hit me one time when we were in Mangshu. We met this guy that came with a motorbike, and he had a big 60 liters backpack with all his stuff. He parked the motorcycle and just put the backpack on top of it. And we're like, okay, let's go out all night, you know? And I was like, dude, do you want to just put your stuff in my car? Like it's safer. And he was like, no. Because it's so natural here that people are not gonna take your stuff. They're not gonna steal. You can leave your car open. Yeah, you really don't have to worry. That it takes a little bit to realize that, because obviously in Europe you have to keep an eye, watch out for your watch. If you have a nice watch, watch out for your phone. There's pickpockets. In Barcelona you can't leave your belonging unattended for like a second and they're gone. Same in Naples, Rome. It's a mentality switch that I need to get used.
You know what? I came to realize it's probably from, you know, the differences from the rich and the poor, because there's a lot of poor people that they have nothing and they sleep on the street. Here, you know, everybody, either you're local, you live here, you have your own house, you have your own business, or you're tourists, you have money and you come here to spend that money. Yeah. So like there's no point of stealing something unknown. It could be, you know, something completely worthless, like, you know, why hustle?
Yeah, if you're poor in Italy, you're desperate. You're more likely to get to a point where you're desperate. Here, even if you don't earn much, you still can find food and shelter easily. Things are still affordable. In Europe, I feel the entry barrier to have a decent life, it's a bit higher than here. Here, you could be really poor, but you still can live fine. Your basic needs are always satisfied. In Europe, if you're poor, your basic needs are not met sometimes. That's pretty sad.
Yeah, I think it comes from this difference.
And you have ways to find money, picking up plastic bottles and cardboard, picking up rubbish around town, because basically you can get them. I think in Germany it works the same with glass bottles. You take them to a collection point and they give you some money for it.
We used to be like that when I was young. But then glass bottle is completely gone now. It's just cans or plastic. So ladies now, they collect these things. They could actually make like around $10 a day.
Yeah, that's
if they just do this
and
non-stop.
that's more than enough to survive. That's the thing. If you make $10 a day in Europe, you have to resort to stealing, and there's no other way around. Yeah, so the whole garbage collection, it wouldn't be possible here, I think, to find situation like Naples, Catania, Palermo, where the normal garbage collection just stops happening and you have the city covered in trash. That's impossible happening here. All public service here are another level. They are efficient and people work super fast on their keyboards and very good at getting your stuff done. Well, in Italy, they're in the back office in Cannolo and they don't want to be disturbed.
You know, it's because people here, especially young people, they want to work in the government.
It's the iron bowl of rice, no?
Yeah. In Italy, it's the contrary. No young people wants to work in the government. So there's a bunch of elderlies, and they don't know how to handle, the stuff.
There is no KPIs or a risk of getting fired in Italy. So once you get government job, you basically can slack all day and you're fine. So all the public spaces, including the train station, for example, train stations are just mind-boggling to me how new and clean and big and organized they are compared to in Italy, where they let you in whether you have a ticket or not. A lot of people without tickets are able to get on the trains, often have altercations with the conductor, they have fights, they threaten them, they get violent. Obviously impossible here. Here, even before you get to the station, they check that you go through TSA as if you were going to an airport and you need the ticket, and once you're in the station, only with a ticket you can get on the train. The high-speed rail is insane. When I found out you can get takeaway in the high-speed rail, I was like, I'm moving here. It's like you can get a Pizza Hut, a KFC or McDonald's, whatever you want from the takeaway at the next station. You just order it on the railway app. When you arrive at the next station, the train stops, they just put the KFC that you ordered in front of you or whatever it is, and that is like next level. I'm like, wow. I wish if you were on a train in Italy, you were stopping in Naples, you could get your pizza, but no, unfortunately, we're not there yet. But I have to say, the slow trains are not that great here.
Because slow trains are cheap. They are for, everybody, and mostly villagers use that a lot, people from the countryside, because they don't have a lot of money. Speed rail is so much more expensive. It's the same price as the European speed rail.
Yeah.
So
in the slow trains, people are smoking inside.
Oh yeah.
There's all sorts of smells.
They do whatever
and
they
happening.
need to do. There's no control basically.
Yeah, and the smoking indoors is another thing. It's unfortunately here very common. They even put ashtrays in restaurants on your table, or in the hotel. You check into a hotel room like we did in Shanghai, and it reeks like smoke so much that you have to leave. And that takes us to daily life, which there are a lot of interesting things like smoking indoors, spitting in some parts of China. I know there is a stereotype that comes up a lot, and I think I can confirm that, but it depends on the region and the city. In Shanxi, probably have a ton of old men who go around spitting, but you go to Guangdong or to Guangzhou or to Shenzhen, there's not gonna be any spitting.
It's more like a
older
northern people problem or older people problem. But here we're in the south, but sometimes they also spit.
Yeah,
but less. But they still do.
Because here it's the countryside. And I think the air pollution has something to do with it. When we were in Shanxi, the air was polluted because there's a lot of mines and factories around. And I find myself having to spit. I think it's also people have to.
I didn't have to.
Because, I also another thing.
It's a man thing.
It's a man thing. Yeah, it's true. It's a man thing. Another thing, since we're talking about countryside or places in the north where when they're not used to foreigners, they just stare a lot, but a lot. They would be like,
and they turn around.
and then you smile at them or you say hello or something, but they're just frozen. But that happened to you in France as well.
Yeah, in some really small places. They probably never have seen foreigner before. Like, yeah, I've been to one fair. It was all like, countryside people, and me being Asian there, they did stare a lot.
Another thing, no physical touch, no hugging, no kissing, even among family members.
Yeah.
If I meet my uncles back in Italy after, almost a year that we haven't seen each other, they would like hug me and smooch me and kiss me and be like, oh, I missed you so much. And like, oh, lulu. When she met her uncles and aunties after many years not seeing them, was like, when I hug your mom or your dad, I can feel them like getting all tense and not knowing what to do.
Where to put their hands.
Yeah. But I love it.
Yeah.
I just like, yeah, come here.
Because it's, the generation trauma passing on, from my grandparents' generation, like life was just so hard. So they pass on to my parents' generation. It only improves from my generation, afterwards. People are more expressing their love language differently. For the older generations, the love language is completely different. It's more like act of service. Right? Instead of, physical touch and all that.
And sometimes unwanted act of service, and sometimes that can create some friction, I've gotta say.
That's a cultural difference.
There is a big cultural difference, yeah. Sometimes maybe if you're hosting your parents, they might kind of a little bit take over in terms of cooking or moving things around the house, and like it's an act of service for them, like they kind of like doing it for you. But for especially maybe in the West, we're more used to have some certain boundaries, and we don't want our furniture to be rearranged in certain ways, or we don't want, we want to keep eating our way and stuff. And also the directness is interesting. Once we were having dinner, and her mom just looks at my belly and goes like, he has a big belly.
No, she didn't say big belly. She only stared at it a little bit. I was like, what's up? And then she was like, she was just curious. She was like, you're eating so little, but how can you have a belly? Like, she was just curious.
But there is this directness, yeah. People would be like, whoa, you're fat, or how much do you make? Things that for us maybe would be a little bit more taboo, or you wouldn't ask. Here they're like very, very open about it.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean harm, like it's a fact. If someone is big or fat, like, it's a fact. So like.
And then there's the practical stuff, like what you probably already know, the cashless society, the QR code for everything. Even the farmer who brings her stuff from the field to the market has a QR code. You pay her digitally. I don't know where is my wallet. I think it's in one of our luggages. From about a couple of weeks after I arrived here, I realized I would never need it again as long as I have my phone. That's pretty neat. The whole general, technology advancement, especially in places like Shenzhen, when they deliver you takeaway with the drone. There's always robots in the hotels that bring you the food service. In Italy, we're a few decades behind in terms of cashless and this kind of high-tech stuff. Even the toilets are high-tech. It's common here to have a Japanese style of toilet where, you have the remote control, and it washes you and and dries you and does things to your parts. You're like, whoa, what's happening here? And on the other hand, sometimes you just find a squat toilet. It's like a hole on the ground. So it's fun.
It's still pretty common. I'm shocked.
Yeah, when you go to the toilet, you never know what you're gonna find. It's like, is it gonna be a hole in the floor, or is it gonna give me a massage?
But this is already way better. When I was young, school has literally open toilet. Like, there's no door. Everybody just line up and goes to toilet, and there's like a few places where you just squat and everybody's like looking at you. And then it's literally a hole in the earth. You can look down and see everything down there.
Wow. And speaking of schools, huge cultural difference, education. And the importance of education, how people take education seriously, the whole school system, the Gaokao, which is the exam you have to do at the end of high school, is such a serious thing.
Way tougher compared to working right now. Yeah, I was sleeping like maybe around 1 or 2 and have to wake up, 6 or 7 to go to school again. Like, it's just like this every day, all day, and there was no break. Especially the last year in high school, there's no weekend. You have just so much homework.
We've met with a few foreigners here that have kids, and they're like, oh, probably by the time middle school comes, we will move away because we don't want them to go through the whole extreme pressure, and because you really need to excel. There's a lot of pressure from family, society, etc.
I did find it's a good thing because I think it did made my character a little bit, you know, like how to organize myself, how to study, how to organize like life. I don't know, I just find it's a tough experience, but it was a good experience at the same time. It makes people, especially kids, tougher, I think.
Also, this comes with a huge respect for the teacher as a figure, revered, and they are important, and there's a lot of respect for them. And even in school, they made you shovel snow or clean the windows.
As a student, you have to serve your school and serve the school as a community, right? So when wintertime it's like snowing, the school would organize and all the students would go and shovel the snow. And also you clean your own classroom because it's your classroom. You have to treat it like your own home.
We were terrible instead. We were trashing our classroom. We were getting the teachers to be desperate because we had zero respect for them. We would be terrible, behaving terribly. I remember my math teacher at high school, we got him to cry because of how bad we were. He had a breakdown, and that was my generation. Now Gen Z, from what I hear from my nieces,
worse.
It's way worse. But school takes us to the next one, which is career and work ethic. Here it's pretty crazy. There's this thing called the 996 where you work 9 to 9, 6 days a week. I really prefer very much Europe. We have our many days of vacations. We have our 9 to 5, very strong boundaries. Like in Italy, the work environment is a bit more toxic than, let's say, the UK or other parts of Europe, but it's still way more chilled than here. Right?
But people here, they cares about making more money. They don't care about work-life balance. These people do make a lot of money, like way higher than, you know, the Chinese social standard. They are kind of willing to do that. If you want them to settle for a regular job, you know, work from 9 to 5 and you get less paid, they probably wouldn't even do it.
Live for work versus work to live. It's something China and maybe the US have in common compared to Europe, where Europe is more like quality of life. Speaking of that, there's also different social phenomena here, like for example the Juan, this new word that means you work extremely hard, you give 200% of yourself, not to get ahead but to not fall behind, because everyone is so competitive. If you don't do that, you fall behind, so you have to exceed to just survive. And that has created a rebound effect, a counter phenomenon where a lot of young people are choosing these young retirement houses where young people just go and chill and, you know, they just live a simple life. Or people come here to the countryside to have a little shop and just they give up on the whole corporate thing. They go against the flow. And we are working on a video about Jingdezhen, where a lot of young people are moving in to become pottery artists. And we interviewed three pottery artists there, and we show you a little bit about this phenomenon. These young people abandon corporate life to pursue their dreams and become artists, and how the whole environment there is incredible. So subscribe, because that video is coming up very soon. We're working on it as we speak. Until then, thanks for watching. Adieu.